One, we're live.
We are live. This is the Screaming Wolves podcast. I'm glad all of you can join us today. We're uploading like crazy people this week. As always, I am Nigel. Below me is Kaya, and above me is Matt. We make our hot takes on other people's hot takes and see if we can make them even spicier.
I just realized if we re-hot on re-hot takes, this is almost like the refried rice of hot takes.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like we take their day old stir fry and we fucking heat that shit up again and serve it fresh to you, beautiful listeners.
I mean, that's the best kind of rice. You want that cooked rice. Anyway.
Unironically, if you do that, if you get like stir fried rice and then stir fried again to heat it up, it's fucking amazing.
It's
highly recommend it. But I'm also the kind of person that thinks like day old cold pizza is just beautiful. Anyway, today what we are going to look at is Hasan Piker. Hasan is he runs a Twitch channel and he has a YouTube channel that he just really re-uploads from his Twitch channel. He used to be an employee of the Young Turks, and his uncle is the head of the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur. He's had quite a bit of controversy online. He's a super woke bro, is really the best way to look at it.
Shocking.
He is like the wokest of the woke in a lot of different ways. And in this video, he talks about the title says toxic masculinity, but he talks about toxic masculinity. He goes on to a bunch of different subjects. One of them being like Jordan Peterson and like incels and how he hates like men's rights activist groups and things along those lines. So I guess a good way to start this video off would be, as usual, we can kind of clarify some of our positions as to how we feel about things like toxic masculinity, what we think toxic masculinity is. I guess that might be a good place to put it. Let's start with Jakaya. When you hear the word like toxic masculinity, what comes to mind for you?
I think, to be honest, I think this video, I've told you about it, and I don't remember her name. I'll try to find it so we can link it in the description if anybody wants to watch it. But I watched this video this chick did on, she does a lot of videos on toxic masculinity, but she specifically did a video on non-toxic masculine characters in fictional media. And she describes toxic masculinity as like the way that you target your masculinity is really what makes it toxic or not. Like you can hang out with the bros and watch football and eat pizza and bro out and like it's totally cool. But when you start calling people pussies or telling them to stop being such a girl or dismiss their emotions or whatever, that's when the masculinity went from being healthy to toxic. And I think that I pretty firmly stand with her on that.
So you would, just to kind of try and like summarize your position, you think that toxic masculinity is when you have groups of, let's say, masculine organizations or masculine groups of friends or things along those lines, and then they deter people or try to force people to conform to what they believe masculinity to be.
Pretty much, yeah. And not even groups, even individuals, Like, when you target somebody for being not masculine enough, or being too feminine, or being too emotional, and you tell them that they're being whiny, or they're being a bitch, or they're being whatever, like, I feel like that's toxic masculinity.
Okay.
And
Matt,
it can be... Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, like, I think that sums up your position.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Pretty well. Matt, when you hear the word toxic masculinity, what comes to mind for you?
Jakaya kind of nailed it on the point there. It's kind of really what toxic masculinity is that whole referral of the stereotype of what a man should be or should behave or acts a specific way. If it's not the gym bro that wants to be the tough guy, Tommy Tough Nuts, it's the expectation that is quote unquote to be a man. And that could be anything from, stop being a pussy to, toughen the fuck up. That's really the long and short, in my opinion, of that definition, as far as like a standpoint on is there toxic masculinity? No, I think there's abuse. Because there's a line there. You can teach your kid to man up, suck it up, stop being a little fucking girl, and do what you got to do and get through it, um, and not be abusive. Teach your son a lesson because there is a difference in my opinion. There's a difference between a man and a woman. The expectations are wildly different, especially if you have kids. There's a lot of things that a woman can do that I can never even remotely come close to achieving, and vice versa. Dana's even learned in our house that there are some things that she isn't capable of doing, and she's happy to have a man to kind of help support on some of these things. Does it push that tough love, or maybe that be a boy? Yeah, I mean, but do we want to strip away, like, say, our son's individuality? No, no, not at all. If he wants to do something, then we will, push him to do that and do well at it. And you know, it's a line. There is a fine line here. Like I said, you can certainly drive into abuse. If I'm calling my son, pussy, 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 24/7, I'm going to hurt him mentally. It's going to be absolutely a toxic thing that's going to degrade him, and that's just abuse. So, I mean, that's just my take.
So to kind of clarify your summary of what you're describing is that it almost sounds like you would say that you believe toxic masculinity exists, but that it's required to a certain extent for to prepare men to for the issues and the problems that they're going to have in society, like societal expectations of such.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Societal expectations, because I wouldn't almost say it's a requirement, because boy, that's a tough one to say, because it's like, no, you are supposed to do so. And we kind of live in a society that doesn't exactly really work in that direction. However, there isn't a guy out there that hasn't felt that pressure of, well, oh, what does it mean to be the man, the provider, if that's the role you wish to take. And even then, there's some level of kind of expectation. It's unfortunately no differently than women that have that over encompassing beauty expectation that even a lot of guys say, look, you're going way too above and beyond on these expectations, but I get it. I get why you're there. It's unfortunate. You shouldn't have to, so on and so forth, but they're just strangely enough there.
Um, yeah, okay. Jakaya, do you? I mean, I guess so. Jakaya, because what Matt's statement on what he believes toxic masculinity is you both kind of agreed what toxic masculinity is to an extent. It's that targeted male um, desire to conform other males into the group, or the I guess the exclusion of those that wouldn't be up to what the line of these masculine people would imagine. So, do you think that, I guess, in a sense, that there is an amount of what we would consider toxic masculinity, that targeted sort of male aggression, I guess you could say, that is required for people?
No,
Or do
I
you
don't
think
think
it
so
should
at
all
all.
be?
I think that you
You
can
know,
support people in their masculinity without being toxic about it. Like, I don't think you need to call your son a pussy while he's growing up to teach him that he needs to be strong and confident.
yes, 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 yes. But obviously, there's that line of abuse. But like,
No, no, I'm
so something along the lines of, so what I would say is something along the lines of looking at someone and I would call it like just giving someone shit, and it's like, hey, we're putting something together in the garage. We have to build something. We have to make something. We're trying to put together a computer or something like that. And I look at you, and it's like, hey man, hand me a Phillips head screwdriver. I need that Phillips head screwdriver. And you're just like, I don't know what that is. It's like, what do you mean?
And another funny example that
I,
you put on
you
this,
know,
and I never fault my son on this, but this happens time and time again. So my son, say I'll be out in the garage doing some work, and he wants to help out, and I'm sure more than four. And this also happens in the kitchen when I'm cooking, so it doesn't have to be a woodworking man project. It just so happens to also be in the kitchen as well. So I drag him out there, like, yeah. Here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna do some work, right? It's not all fun and games. It can be fun and games in a show where there's fun, but there's work involved too, right? And it's the prep. He hates the prep. He never wants to do the prep. And so it's like, no. You either do the work or you don't. Right. So these are the hard lessons. So I almost feel like as a parent, we have to be careful, because if we raise our kids to know that, no, you don't have to do the hard work. You can have all the fun. We don't teach him anything. He doesn't learn anything about doing a particular job. And could that be a form of manning up? maybe. I mean, it's really just fucking do your job, right?
Yeah, but
Work.
that has nothing to do with toxic masculinity in the
No.
phrasing
But if
that
I
you
told him,
utilized.
oh
Like,
sure, but if I told him to shut the fuck up and stop being a little bitch, right? There's no difference. It's just the delivery and how you would
well,
approach it,
but that doesn't
right?
matter,
And that's
especially
what
in the
I,
growth of a
yeah,
child. Like teaching them to like
yeah,
accept and grow from it rather than bullying them because they have
yeah.
not manned up or
Well, this
whatever
is
is the problem.
yeah. Well, and this is where like toxic masculinity, I don't feel they've because I've heard this term used a lot. They don't just limit it to only using terms like pussy or being a bitch, being a baby, but having expectations of being the stereotypical man, right? So I'm even going it to in a lighter degree of toxic masculinity. I'm raising my son to be a man. It's like that can also be in and itself represented as, oh, I mean, I'm being the toxic masculine father that wants to teach his son to do a job or do, work or work as a man. It's like, well, yes and no. It depends on the approach. And this is where I was kind of saying, like, to some regard, it does exist, but it has its place if the definition that we're saying it is the stereotypical or expected the expectations of being a man, right? So
Yeah, but in
because I wouldn't.
Well,
in today's
go ahead, Jake.
society, why is like who's to say that woodworking is a man's job? Like I don't know a whole lot of woodworking,
It's
like
not.
you know what I
And
mean?
you're
Like
right. It's not.
and there's plenty of
It's
women
not.
who woodwork well and so my point is like what decides what is like a masculine like
Right.
hobby or profession or whatever. So like
Yeah.
to me I think it's more about like allowing people to be whatever varying degree is comfortable. And I think teaching someone to do the work, do the hard work, be a motivated person, like I don't think that's limited to masculinity whatsoever. Women need to learn to be strong enough to get through their life as well. Like it's not I
Sure.
don't think it's a masculine thing. I think it's about like just supporting people and teaching them about like how to grow and not
Yeah,
putting them down
but
for it.
that's not entirely true in the society that we have today. So while I personally feel that, like, I am of the idea that if you are in society, there are certain levels of masculinity that you absolutely need to have, whether you're male or female. I actually think one of the most annoying things on the planet is a lot of women that really just lean on their male counterparts or lean on males to do a lot of the shittiest things in society and that they feel no expectation to do so. There are a lot of women, if you've worked really anywhere, a lot of women like we talked about in our military episode, where it's like you all just had no idea what you were getting into because you've never been forced to do so. And I think that that's a complete disservice to females. Let me just finish one thing real quick. So we're kind of getting a little bit off track, and maybe it's because I didn't explain the question more or less properly. How much of the toxic masculinity is necessarily required? Because I will give my take on this, and I think that there is a certain amount that is required because the world is inherently unfair. Um, you might sit there and take an individual, and let's take small children out of it because no one should necessarily be abusive to children. But there are things that people would be considered toxic masculinity traits that you may need to instill onto an individual because they might go out and run into problems down the world of someone who is more aggressive, and you will have to meet that aggression at point. One of those things would potentially be fighting. You know, hey, if someone comes up and they take food off your plate, if someone comes up and they take something from you, if someone comes up and you're at school or you're in the workplace or you're in various different points in your life and someone is coming at you with a certain amount of aggression, as a man, it is actually not a great thing to sit there and just allow this abuse to occur. It will hurt you socially. It will hurt you with your ability to find mates in those areas. And it will also tend to extend to an extent of like bullying from a certain individual. And that's kind of the thing where it's like, hey, you can't let someone punk you, or you can't let someone treat you like a bitch, that kind of thing. And those traits, that kind of like male aggressive trait of like coming back and being like, no, you won't fucking do that. Like, I'll fucking break your nose. Like, that is something that like you do have to teach people.
I
That
don't
is
think defending yourself is toxic masculinity though.
I
No, but it's squaring up
I
as a
would
man.
disagree. Yeah. Yeah, I would disagree. I would actually say that
Because
that's
even I would teach Leon the
would be
expectation
considered
that you're
like
probably going to
toxic
get popped in the nose, but at least you stood your ground.
I don't understand why defending yourself is considered toxic masculinity.
because the offside of that is the idea is that you're going to be increasing this amount of masculinity. Like so, you sit there and you can teach someone one of two ways to handle that situation. You either become aggressive and defend yourself, and you don't let anybody treat you like what would like the common parlance would be treat you like a bitch,
If you don't, you're
or
a pussy, and you've
yeah,
become less of that man that you're
you
supposed to
are
represent.
doing this. It's like that is something that we as a society look at, whether
It
we
is almost
intend to or
expected.
not.
Yeah.
That is absolutely the case. And then the other side of that,
Hmm.
you could even say the more rational side of that is like, well, why don't you go talk to a teacher? Why don't you go talk to your boss? Why don't you go talk to this person, that
Yeah.
person, something along those lines? And I would say that to an extent, sure, but at the same time, like the act of aggression has already been put upon you. So that could be a trait of toxic masculinity, that standing up for yourself, that ability to tell other people, go fuck yourself. I'm not fucking doing that shit. You can kiss my
Yeah.
fucking ass. Um, and then looking
Especially
at
at
someone
school can
who,
be really cruel about that too, because they could really criticize you because that'll stick with you for however long until you're
Matt,
out, right?
Matt, who you talking to? I was gay in high school. Who are
well,
you
and
talking to?
that's actually kind of what I was gonna say is like Jakai, I've known you for a long time. Like I know how aggressive you have been. Your mom could easily have been said to have taught you quite a few toxic masculine traits.
Again, I don't
Um,
understand why defending yourself is considered toxic masculinity. That doesn't make
but
sense
your
to
mom
me.
didn't always. But your mom didn't
No, no,
always
no.
teach you to defend yourself. She taught you to be aggressive. That
No,
was
my
the
mom
family
taught
that you
me.
came out of,
My
and that
mom
actually
always
served
taught
you
me.
quite well.
My mom always taught me that especially in school, if I had a problem with someone, my first act is to tell a teacher, get some outside help to resolve it respectfully, and then if I
So
can't, then it is to defend myself.
okay, so then if you have to teach someone that they need to defend themselves, if you need to teach someone that kind of aggression, because that is not within the realm of normal female, and most females don't sit there like they are taught it is aggression is not within the realm of femininity. Like no one sits there and thinks femininity and they think like violent aggression. That
This
is
isn't to
all
say that women don't do it, but he's right. The
yeah, it's
majority of
not to
women.
say that's absolutely not to say that women cannot be
Right.
physically aggressive because that's also untrue. But like aggression and violence are very clearly under the realm of like masculine traits.
Hmm.
That is something that we promote in young men. That is something that we promote in men altogether, and it's something that we generally don't promote in a lot of females. One of the various reasons is because, well, hey, you don't want to come across as crazy to mates, but also if you're that aggressive as a female, eventually you're going to pick the wrong motherfucker, and odds are like about 48 to 50% of the population is the wrong motherfucker for you to do that shit to.
Well, to
So
answer Jakai's question on that was, so why is aggression connotated, or why is that a form of toxic masculinity? And it is simply just the expectation of, if you're confronted, or if you're putting in some level of like aggression, say a fight, say if you're being picked on, it is in society expected of you to have to respond, because if you don't, and say you just decide, no, I'm going to de-escalate, walk away, take the better route or the high route, as some would call it, you can be criticized for making such a decision. You're a coward. You're a pussy. You're less than a man now, and so you've chopped yourself down from being. So you have to be that overbearing, dumb. Okay, I got to square up and probably take a punch to the face, but here we go.
I mean,
And it's
again,
like it's an expectation.
I have two questions about that. The first one is, why is defending yourself toxic masculinity? No one has explained that yet. No one has explained why that's considered toxic.
well, it's the teaching someone that they're going to have to be aggressive in that sense is generally considered like
I
very
guess it's
masculine,
kind of
and
the
it's
No, no.
generally
opposite of
considered toxic.
because if not
The
doing
act of
so,
the act of violence is generally considered a toxic masculine trait.
Okay, so why is the act of defending yourself considered toxic? I still don't understand.
I'm not the person who defines toxic masculinity. I'm just saying that if we were to sit there in a situation and I were to have to teach my son, or I were to teach a young man, or I would have to teach junior sailors or something along those lines, of going like, what do I do when I'm in this situation? It's like, dude, you gotta fucking kick his ass. Like, you gotta fight back. Can't bitch out on that. Like, just can't. You know?
And
But if it was a woman, it may
and-
not be the
and
same
that-
conversation.
Well, and that would probably be considered like you made the claim that essentially taking these masculine traits and when it becomes toxic is when you are, in your words, forcing them upon an individual to not
Right.
allow them to have their individuality. And what I am saying is that in the society that we have, if you are a male, you have certain expectations from the society that if you are a parent or a mentor or someone who is older than the junior person and you are and you need to teach them these things, you have to lean into some of those more toxic aspects of masculinity for them to be capable of having a decent life in the society. Or they are going to run into say, like, I would say that you are harming them by not teaching them to defend themselves. I would say you are harming them. And in doing that, none of that is necessarily fun. And when they ask, why do I have to do that? And it's like, well, this is just the way that it necessarily is. I can't personally change that society. If my son is in an instance with his friends and a fight could potentially break out and Kiki runs out there and goes, no, none of this is gonna fucking happen. Daniel lost that fight. Like, that is how that's going to be viewed, and that's going to hurt him socially, and that's going to harm him.
You think there's a scene
I think-
something like that too.
But I think that's the problem. Teaching children that like having to fight is what builds your reputation is toxic masculinity.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I would rather live in a society where that doesn't have to be the case.
Yeah, but it
what
starts
I'm
with
saying-
parents teaching their children. That's where it starts. So if you never teach them, then we get into a circle of never growing.
Yeah, that's great, but I would say that the world is not fair to men, and that in some of those ways, those toxic traits are almost required.
There's
Your
almost
ability to be aggressive and defend yourself is required in almost every society on the planet.
and it's
As
almost
a male, as a female, it is not required at all.
I never got into fights in high school. I had people pick on me all the time, and I just walked away, and it never hurt my reputation.
no.
Sure, but I mean, it hurt. It made it hurt mine. I mean, there were times where that absolutely.
One can't speak for the masses, my friend. I mean, it's very, very fortunate that you didn't, especially for being gay in high school. I don't know how your school was. I mean, my school wasn't
Elkhart,
really bad at
stop!
that kind of stuff. Maybe if I lived somewhere ass backwards, possibly. But I would almost argue too, like the expectations for a man, they're wildly different. But you're right. It is a rather unfair world, and men have an unfair disadvantage, but women have their also equal unfair disadvantages in different aspects. It's just the way of life. It's just how the world works. If we may not like it, and we're allowed to bitch about it, but it's like, well, I'll just keep moving the sticks forward.
So why do anything outside of what society demands? Why vote third party? Why choose to be gay and fight, or choose to accept being gay and fight for your rights? Why do anything outside of society's norms if there's no hope of ever changing anything? Like, why
Because who does it hurt?
Why would you continually? It hurts your children. Hello?
Not
It
if I
hurts
teach
the
them
people that grow up to be
stand
too
up for themselves.
aggressive, that grow up to be toxic, that grow up to not be able to find mates because they're too toxic. Like,
Well, I
it
don't
hurts
teach him to
in
be
multiple
toxic. I
ways.
teach him to. I get it. I don't teach him to
Sure.
be toxic. I teach him to square up as a man, and again, being a man could also be viewed as being somebody who maybe has a good moral compass or maybe a good integrity. Right. That's always a pretty solid
But
trait in people.
that generally wouldn't be considered toxic. And therein
No, it
lies
would,
some of the
but-
problems is that delineation of that line from toxic masculinity.
Right.
But Jakaya, we're not saying that the society ought not to change. What we're saying is that right now, in this time, some of those traits you may need to teach someone. And that in that instance, like, I can't change the world. You can't change the world.
Why-
That one individual.
That's how it
and
starts,
do you but it's very unlikely that that's really going to be the case. I mean, maybe, hopefully, but I would be completely unwilling to set my child back in that sense, just to on the off chance that hopefully the world works out. Like, there are male things that you have to teach children, and some of those things may come off as, or can be considered to be toxic. That's not saying that, I don't teach my son or I don't teach anyone junior to me to be uncaring or particularly cold or
Right,
or
or
to
Right.
not be in
something
touch
bad.
with how they feel or something like that.
But that's
But
not.
there are some times, and I would say in society where I would absolutely say that for a male, there are times in society where you may need to like activate that chimpanzee part of your brain and go wild, and that would be considered like, yeah, understand that toxic masculine part of your brain, and you need to understand how to harness that.
Like, but teaching someone that they might have to man up for the sake of reputation is a joke, like, in my opinion. All it does is perpetuate this like shitty stereotype for men. Like, you
Well,
should
the
absolutely
expectation that society
you should
puts.
absolutely be taught to no, it's the expectation you're putting on your kid. Society changes by teaching people to be better. So like,
My father didn't teach me to get up and get a job and be a provider. My dad divorced, split, and I never seen him. And my stepfather was kind of this Bible thumping piece of shit. So I don't know where I got this in my head, where it's like, no, I am the provider. I am this. This is
you
this
got
is
it
what
from
I'm supposed to
somebody.
be.
Well,
That's
and
my
I
point.
would and I would
Yeah.
make the argument that parents teach their children way less than their friend group.
I mean,
Um,
that's definitely true, but
yeah,
people still learn from
way
the people around them.
Well, and that's where society, right? That's kind
Again,
of
again,
a
it
part of
starts
that.
from being a parent. That's where it starts. If it doesn't start there, where does it start?
Sure.
sure, but I mean, Jakaya, that's kind of easy for you to say when you don't have skin in the game.
I mean, I guess, but still, like, you still have to teach your children to be better than the life that you had.
Sure, to an extent, and
Sure,
like I
to a
said,
point.
you can teach them to take certain things better. I would say in this society, we still have some requirement for that toxic masculine, what we would consider toxic, and you do have to conform individuals to a certain extent. Everyone is conforming to an extent to allow themselves to exist in the society around them. I think
You know,
that if you sit there and you take away all of, like, not necessarily all of them, but some of those toxic masculine traits, you end up with a bunch of men. I think that could be very well where we get like this kind of incel thing where you just have men that just go, I'm out, like MGTOW movements and shit like that, where just men going their own way. I'm completely opting out of the entirety of the game. And I
Possible.
don't think that that's good
Elgar,
for
stop.
society at all.
Stop.
Um,
Sit.
So
Sit.
I look at that and it's like there are some of those traits that you do have to have in a society to a certain extent. Maybe if we live in some kind of like Star Trek utopian post fucking need society, that may not be the case. But I just don't believe that the society we live in now is anywhere near there.
Interesting enough too is the partner that we have in our life too. So let's say, depending on who is
Stop.
involved in our lives. So say
Down.
like Nigel, you and I have Kiki, but say not so much, for Jakaya. And say even for the sake of both Dana and Kiki, I won't speak on Kiki's behalf, but Dana, she's a strong, independent individual. She really does
Stop.
her best to do things on her own. However, she still has that
Stop.
leading factor onto me, and so we've kind of had this understanding expectations. And interestingly forward, even from that, is since she had this baby, she's definitely gotten into these maternal instincts that she's been able, and I've been able to kind of recognize and accept to say there are things that you obviously have to do, whether it be that you're better at it or because you're literally a woman, you have to do that. So there could be some level of expectation of being the woman and me being the man saying, okay, cool. So then I'm going to handle this, that, and the other. So whereas we have this mutual understanding as a couple, there really isn't much friction. So whereas the same could be said for you, but it's in Jakai's case where it does not apply because perhaps and this could happen even for a woman that wants to do everything on her own, to say, I can handle all the man stuff. Fucking great. Then this whole dialogue, this whole concept doesn't even apply. And so it may just be words from another foreign planet to them,
Well, and I would almost, I mean, let me ask you, Jakaya. I've known you for 20 years at this point. Would you say that some of the inherent, because you are
Stop.
one of the more aggressive people that I know in my life, almost naturally. That's always kind of been your personality. When there's something, you go right after it. Um, would you say that that aggression has helped you more in your life or harmed you?
God, I don't know. I would probably split it right down the middle on a 50-50. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
a
Sure.
fucking asset. It's really useful being aggressive and knowing what I want or going after the things that I want. And other times it really gets me in fucking trouble. I really put my foot in my mouth sometimes.
Because one of the things that I was actually kind of thinking would have been like, we both have our mutual friend who is also gay in the same school that we went to, who wasn't as big because you're always a big guy. Like, when you were in like sophomore year, you were like full grown fucking beard. You looked like a stacked Russell Crowe. So for real, I'll find a picture of Jakaya back in sophomore year, and he looks like Russell Crowe if Russell Crowe put on like a fucking way bigger shoulders and legs.
That's fucking
And
terrifying.
like Gladiator. Yeah, no, I always told Jakaya, I was like, you should have gone on the football team. You would have been a phenomenal
Yeah.
fucking runner.
Dude, how
Um,
tall are you, Chikaya?
6 foot.
yeah, he's about as
Dude,
tall
would have
as
been a
me.
linebacker.
He would no, you would have handed him. You would have just made him a fucking running back 'cause he was fast. Um, but I would wonder because you said like, well, I was able to walk away from a lot of shit and it didn't really affect my reputation. Or you didn't really have to concern yourself as much with that. But I would also say, Jakaya, that's because almost any of the individuals in our high school, if they wanted to really fucking throw down, it probably wouldn't have gone particularly well for them. Like, I know because me and you have fought with one another. And like, I don't want it. Like, I'm fucking good. You fucking hit really hard. And like, it's not to say that you didn't get into fights. I've seen you get into fights and win. So I mean, like, whereas our other mutual friend really never had that kind of option. I mean, he significantly smaller. Do you know? Just say yes or no if you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Significantly smaller, far more introverted. A lot of things like that. And I know for a fact that he got picked on quite a bit.
I
Um,
don't I don't know if it ever we don't ever really talked about him being picked on cuz like he didn't really care a whole lot. Like he had his like tight group of friends and he just kind of let everything else fall by the wayside.
yeah,
I
I had heard people say quite a few very mean things to him. Um, and I don't know. In some ways I wonder if some of the aggressive kind of traits that you have throughout your life altered some of those things because you know there is a certain element of advantage that one gets in society. I boxed as a kid and I did jujitsu for a long time. So like the altercations that I got into in my life, there were a couple that I've only been in like two real fights in my life. Both times I won very quickly. Um, and that was a certain amount of confidence that came forward from me. I was not afraid to get hit. I was not afraid to hit back. I was pretty confident when I did. I didn't go looking for any problems, most assuredly. I was honestly way better at talking my way out of a situation than not. But I can also immediately think of a time where I would absolutely say I was emasculated by a group of individuals, and I had my little brother with me, and they were talking a lot of shit and trying to get into a fight, and I was doing my best to get my brother out of that area while I was kind of taking these slings and arrows, you know. And in that moment, there were a lot of people around, and I was absolutely looked down upon. That was an absolutely like textbook emasculating moment to me. And like those are things like a lot of people have those times in their life where they can look back and go, yeah, fuck man, that fucking really pissed me off. And I don't think that I would be very against harming anyone or talking shit to anyone for letting that kind of aggression out or going after them. I
Right.
don't think we should be calling people who are in those situations necessarily pussies or anything like that. But again, to kind of like that's kind of what I'm trying to get at is like you do need to explain that to young men as they come up is like, you may be put in situations just because you're a guy that is very different from a woman, and you are going to have to like show aggression in such a sense. You're going to have to activate that chimpanzee part of your brain from time to time, the same way that we should have honest conversations with females, kind of against like the victim, or like the victim blaming thing or something like that, where it is the kind of thing where it's like, okay, sweetie, you're going off to college. Your family group is not going to be here to kind of protect you or keep an eye out for you. You're going to have to be very fucking aware of where you are, because people may have very poor intentions for you.
You know, I don't even know how far dead this mentality is too for men. But the one thing that I've was thinking about was so say you're out and about public and you're seeing some woman getting harassed or picked on by some other guy. Now, was it not the expectation once upon a time to step in for that lady, right? We don't, as a man, the expectation is you don't harm another woman. That's insane. But I don't know if I see it as often anymore.
Yeah. Well, you can go on a lot of like.
And that was the expectation. Online. If you ever harassed a woman, you were going to get your ass beat.
Well, or look at simply how men interact with children. You can find tons of like Reddit threads and all sorts of online forums and all sorts of jokes that you can find in like the mainstream media of like men who are like, oh yeah, if there's like a kid lost in Walmart, I don't go anywhere near that fucking kid. And it's like, well, why is that? It's like, I don't want to be seen as X, Y, or Z. And it immediately looks bad. Or like dads that take their kids to fucking like parks or things along those lines. And then they immediately question like, what are you doing here? Who are you? You know, are you some kind of fucking pedophile? You some kind of fucking rapist? You know, that kind of thing. There are a lot of negative aspects put on men, and I kind of put a lot of those aspects on this term exactly, that toxic masculine term, because I think that the attack has been so great that we don't look at very many of the virtues of masculinity and where those come from and why. There's a really good Amber Alert commercial I had seen a couple of days ago that had a really good twist because it plays into the stereotypes of men and women. If you want after, I can try to pull it up. It's like a super short, like only seconds long commercial video. I can send you guys a link, but that's really good because that one had people in the comments going, "What a twist!" Yeah, post it in the chat and I'll put it in the description of the video. But anyway, we've kind of gone on this tack long enough. Let's listen to Hasan's hot take and what he feels about some of these things. All right. Good? Sound good?
Let's ride.
Yeah, I'm ready to do it.
Go.
Dr. K is talking about what? Dr. K would have lost more than his job if he talked about men's issues and suicide.
You know, I was thinking about talking about some of this stuff publicly, and I was like, you know, but I'm not ready to yet because I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose my job, you know, at Harvard, an academic position. And he was like, oh, no. If you talk about this, you're not going to just lose your academic position. You're going to lose all of your positions.
So did you guys catch that?
Yeah, he said that if he talks about it, he's going to lose, like, basically any position he's got and potential future ones, too, basically, is the undertext.
Well, and do you guys maybe know who Dr. K is? He is on Twitch, and I believe he's, like, a clinical psychologist and therapist. And what he does a lot of is he talks online and essentially does a lot of these like therapy sessions with various streamers about like their issues and what's going on and all sorts of things. Like he almost operates his practice off of Twitch, having these one-on-one long form sessions with these people. And he's currently talking to Abba from the channel Abba and Preach, which is another really good channel if anyone's listening.
Oh, I thought it was yours.
Yeah, right. It's only 1B, not 2. But yeah, I mean, like, which is another really good channel that you guys, anyone listening, really ought to go listen to, because they bring up a lot of good things and they bring up a really good discussion on a lot of stuff from the Black perspective in North America. And yeah, what he was saying was I hear about a lot of these men issues and suicide and depression and all those things that come up along those lines, and I didn't know if I was ready to talk about it. And this is a professional who is at Harvard who is being told, yeah, you ought not talk about it because you won't only lose this position, you'll lose all of your positions. And that is wild to me, that you
Yeah.
can have someone who is a doctor who is told, yeah, you shouldn't talk about these problems that are going on with a group's psychological health because
Right.
you'll be ran off for it.
Yeah, that's definitely fucked up.
And so I was like, oh, okay, interesting.
I talk a decent amount about men's issues, and it's so annoying to always get dismissed with how you are only bringing up the counter problems women have in society. Yeah, the problem is that MRA is a reactionary movement, okay? Men's issues can be very perfectly encaptured under class issues, okay? There is a increasing suicide rate amongst men. Like, it's a huge fucking problem. A lot of that can directly relate back
We
to
have an
the
echo.
issues that they face under their class position and the lack of coverage from that point of view, because most Western societies do not look at a single point of view from a class position. If you are ever in a bind because of your class position, then it doesn't matter. Like, who gives a shit? You. Like, we are trained to look at everything specifically from an identity point of view, and considering the fact that historically, as a consequence of gender patriarchy, men.
Hold on. Who are the motherfuckers that taught America to look at things through a fucking exclusively identity point of view, Hasan? Like, am I fucking crazy? Like, I don't think.
No.
Like, who are the motherfuckers that did that, Hasan? Because it wasn't fucking the conservatives. I mean, or at least not the Republicans. Most
No.
assuredly, it's not like males. And he talked about how it's like you can take all of these issues that men are currently complaining about and graft it directly onto a class issue.
Elakar.
Do you think that he would give this kind of class, not identity, grace to any other group of individuals other than, like, males?
No, because it's the main topic point for being woke right now. Well, at the time too, right? You want to hit anything that's got that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, do we think that
Non-progressive-
argument is like? Do we think that argument is like? That would be
Stop.
considered racist and a shit take argument if we were to go, well, it's not black people, it's not the society's fault that black people are on the bottom rungs of society. It's their individual decisions, and it's their blah 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 blah. Like, he's running down almost like an exclusively conservative talking point there. I mean, am I wrong? Did you guys hear something different?
Nope.
No, sounds about right.
I mean, that just seems so fucking stupid to me. That seems like completely antithetical to like every other woke thing that he could have possibly ever said.
White men have been the dominant class throughout most of fucking history in Western societies. It's just like whenever you bring it up from a white male point of view, everyone's gonna fucking laugh at you for understandable fucking reasons. Yep, just
Wow.
That's what I said. Is that what I said? Did you hear me say that? No. But there were working class men back then. I understand. There always will be. We're talking about the dominant group. That doesn't mean that that white people aren't oppressed. I always talk about this literally all the goddamn time. It comes down to this: let men and women make choices, even if they're different and large. This equity stuff should stop. There's no.
Hold on. Again, just to comment on this, again, I really dislike the whole grouping white race thing. I think it's so dumb. Look at Hasan here. What would we consider him?
I mean, he looks pretty white.
He looks white, but he's probably
he-
obviously not given his name.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if Hasan considers himself a white man, a white straight male, or if he considers himself a Turkish immigrant.
Dude,
Because,
and
that's-
it's funny. Who was it? It was more. It's stupid, but Morgan Freeman damn near nails the whole race thing. This was years ago. Everyone's probably fucking seen this video where it's like, well, how do we end racism? Stop talking about it. That's it.
Wasn't that a Morgan
Not
Freeman
everything
quote?
is. Probably.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said
There was an
Morgan
interview
Freeman
he was
really
on
nailed
with
it.
somebody. I think it was with Don Lemon. But yeah, it was like, well, how do we end racism? Stop talking about it. Right? That's it. That's all you got to do. So why does race is never an issue in most of fucking anything, especially when you're talking about something that's pertaining to men.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
Jesus
Stop.
fucking Christ.
Stop.
So this comment that he's about to
Stop.
comment on, I mean, what do we necessarily think about it? It comes down to this: let men and women make choices, even if they are different at large. The equity stuff should stop. There's no benefit to looking at people by their group identities when making decisions. That should be based on individual circumstances. Men and women are different in temperament. It's coming full circle. You're going to see men and women turn on each other and races too. How do we, God damn it, how do we feel about that? I personally, I mean, I get that. I definitely think there's probably a benefit to looking at people by their group identities. That's something that we really ought to do on a macro level.
Yes, I agree. It's so cool. And you're right. Well,
Stop.
one of the goals, I'm not going to sit there and pull conspiracy theories, because one of the goals in like hard left movements like BLM and a handful of those was to just disrupt and destroy the nuclear family. I mean, that was literally an objective on their website that says disrupt the nuclear family. And that in a nutshell is what the nuclear family consists of. And so in doing so, right, and in talking equity, you do disrupt the temperament that is between men and women. And that could be incredibly fucking dangerous, because to say that there isn't any difference between the two of us is absolutely fucking crazy. There are similarities for sure,
But equity
you cannot
assumes differences. That's the point of equity. Equity assumes assisting people based on their differences and their needs.
But is that not equal outcomes though?
Well, that's
Yes,
the point, is to get to an
equity
equal
is the
point,
end.
but because of differences. That's what equity is. You get to the same endpoint by supplying different people with different needs based on group identity, disability, whatever.
Right, but you share an outcome that's both in the same. It's regarded as the same. So no matter what is perceived or viewed, the outcome still is the same, right?
Well, right,
Or that's
so-
the goal, is it?
Right, so like a very basic example of equity is like you have a ramp and you have stairs to get up this building
Right.
to the door.
Right.
The ramp is for people who cannot walk upstairs. That's equity. Everyone still gets to the door. We have just accommodated both groups in a way that they can both get to the door. That is equity. The end goal is the same, but allowing everyone the opportunity to get to that end goal in the way that is beneficial to them.
Are you inherently pro the idea of society being perfectly equitable, or do you think that that's not necessarily a good thing?
Oh, ideologically speaking, I think I would be pro-equity, but I have known too many shitty individuals that don't deserve equity, in my opinion, even though they could probably benefit from it. So I'm not sure.
That's understandable.
So, to be honest, my answer is that I'm not 100% sure where I stand on it. As a theory, I really like it, but I'm not sure in practice it accomplishes everything it's supposed to.
See, my problem with equity is that it gives the little man or the bad man, there really isn't any discrimination on it, the advantage to those, and it also doesn't promote any level of competition. Again, if we're speaking workforce or any other, but it doesn't promote any kind of competition. So it just gives everybody the same ending point, but gives those that are struggling the leg up. Of course, if we're going to use the handicap ramp as the example, well, yeah, we sound like a bunch of bastards because we're telling the handicap guy to go, to take the fucking stairs. May not be the best example, but I get where the premise is going. I think
that's
one
not-
that was used was like,
I would say it's a good example to try and understand the premise of equity in what would be considered a fair light. That it's like, we should try and build a ramp to get up to the door as well as the stairs for the people that can't take the stairs for whatever reason. That kind of thing. But I would personally say that while equanimity probably should be something that we strive for, I think pretty much every society that has tried to maximize their equity has had massive fucking issues down the road. And it's because at some point you disincentivize the individuals in your society that are willing to do all of the terrible shit, all of the hard, shitty labor. You incentivize essentially laziness, more or less, which then degrades your society down the road because no one's willing. It's like, well, fuck, I don't need to be a nuclear engineer.
That's a whole different pig for a whole other day, huh?
Uh-huh. Yep. Anyway, let's continue.
Decisions that should be circumstances. Men and women are different in temperament. It's coming full cycle. You're going to see men and women turn on each other, and races too. Okay, bro. Identity politics, leftists are out of control, and Reddit does a great job promoting all their false narratives on a daily basis. This is why people like popular. Someone who actually acknowledges men's issues is a rare but brilliant side.
Ooh, that's going to trigger the shit out of them.
Yeah, dude. Jordan Peterson does exactly what all of these weirdos who hate female streamers and call them ethos do, but for young, rudderless ship men, okay? I don't know how else to describe it. Jordan Peterson is the white male Deepak Chopra for all of these young kids, all of these young men that do not have guidance in their lives, okay? That's it. He finds and cultivates a community of simps from a lot of incels and kids that feel like no one is speaking for the alienation that they feel right now. And that is a very real alienation that you feel, but all that he does is basically reconfirm your preconceived biases, and you like it because he tells you that it's not your fucking fault, it's society's fault. It's society's fault that you...
Wow. If you know anything about Jordan Peterson, that is like the literal opposite of what Jordan Peterson writes or lectures or does anything about.
I
Jordan Peterson,
didn't he write books on how to help women in the workforce?
He spent years doing that, but what he essentially said was Jordan Peterson goes out and has all these lectures and cultivates this large group of, I don't know, low status males essentially,
Sure.
And tells them all that it's the society's fault that they are in the situation that they are in, and that is 100% the opposite of what Jordan Peterson talks about. He outright says, listen, the society is the way that it is. If you're having the problem in the society, you need to find ways to better yourself in order to fit into the society that you exist in. That's absolutely, look at his most quoted little maxim, clean your room. That entire ideology is about, hey, you cannot fix things outside of the world and about the society that you live in if you can't fucking clean your own room. You have to make yourself as lethally effective as you possibly can in order to stand a chance out there. And if you're not trying to better yourself as an individual, then what you are going out and complaining about will never get better. So this by Hasan is just fundamentally a mischaracterization of what Jordan Peterson talks about.
Well, and it's also apparent that he doesn't like Jordan Peterson, so.
No, yeah, obviously. I mean, this is the same guy who said America deserved 9/11. So I don't really know what to say about it.
It's a fun.
You know, anyone else catch that bit before too, where he talked about how he's like, these are all the things that are going on with men and all that kind of stuff, and these are the things that society puts on you, and those things are. He even says like those things are very real.
No.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, like he outright said like all these things that you have going on here are very real. But he's about to sit here and just say like, but they don't matter, I guess. I mean, if you are the majority group in a society, should the complaints that you have, even if you, let's say we just give the idea of the institutional advantages that are going on, do your complaints still matter? Do the oppressions that you have still actually matter?
Why couldn't?
Trying
Why
to
shouldn't
justify.
they?
Right.
Okay.
Like, are you not
Well,
still a
that-
person existing in a society? Like,
Yeah, I mean that's my question to like you guys here is that because that's quite literally what he's going on about. He just said like, yeah, all of those things that are going on are very real and they are imposed upon you. You do have certain amounts of oppressions, but it doesn't really matter. And it's like that's ridiculous. Like that's insane. Again, would you give these kind of good graces to any other group in America? I really don't think so.
It's bold to say that there's literally nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, and this is essentially what he's complaining about. It's like these
Right.
people who, they're like men's rights activists. He called them a reactionary group, But it's like that's literally what they're doing. They're doing the same thing that feminist groups and things like that are doing. I mean, like if you in society you find a lever that you can pull and it aids you in what you're trying to get out of the society, well, it's not just going to be you that's pulling the fucking lever. Like, don't be mad that you now put the tool in the tool bench.
Right? Or be mad that you have shitty tools.
Sure, yeah. Or that they're used against you, yeah. All right. Anyone else have anything to say about that?
No.
You do, and there is truth to that, but not in the way that Jordan Peterson tells you. He just does like the inverse of whatever you consider to be SJW politics. He just does the inverse of that, okay? I agree with you, but depression and suicide rates for men is more than just a class problem. Toxic masculinity and patriarchy oppresses men in different ways than it oppresses women, and it should definitely be discussed, but not only when women are trying to discuss their own oppression. There are public figures who do talk about these things in very constructive ways, but MRAs are not interested in that. Yes, MRAs are only interested in bringing up fucking male problems in the same way that like fucking all lives matter folks are never there for all lives, but only bring up all lives matter when people are talking about Black Lives Matter, because they are reactionary. It's a reaction to progress. It's an inability to change and a reaction to the progress. That's why it's always used as a counter whenever people are talking about fucking feminism.
I don't actually disagree with that.
Well, I would. I mean, I would. His point there with what the chatter had essentially said was like, well, yeah, you get these MRAs that come forward and talk to, and there are like other groups that talk about these same things, but they are just a reactionary. I mean, like, yeah, men's rights active groups are going to talk about men's rights things. We don't sit there and look at like the all lives matter, Black Lives Matter thing. Yeah, like Black Lives Matter is going to talk about what they are fucking concerned about.
When did Peter
No, but
start
the
talking
thing is-
about anything else?
But he's not wrong. Like, especially on the internet. With day-to-day people, it's different. But on the internet, like, someone posts on Twitter, Black Lives Matter, and then someone immediately posts after, All Lives Matter. It's the same way with MRAs. It really is. Again, at least on the internet. Oh, well, women have this issue. Yeah. Well, no, men have this issue. And it's like, they can they can have their own issues. They don't need to be reactionary to one another, is his point here, which I actually agree with.
Well, sure, but are reactionary movements inherently bad? I mean, I mean that's a genuine question. Like, are reactionary movements inherently bad? Because he's made the claim that reactionary movements are inherently bad.
Well, it's
because he views reactionary movements as anything against progress in society, what he would deem progress in society.
I would say that a lot of these reactionary movements are designed to detract from the point being made at first. Like, I think All Lives Matter is absolutely something that was designed to detract from BLM, which makes it a shitty reactionary movement. Like, I think
but that doesn't mean reactionary movements are inherently bad. I mean, if there was a reactionary movement of anti-fucking Nazi party in fucking Germany, that would be inherently fucking bad.
Well, I think it... okay, but the point is I think the ultimate point is not that it's bad, but that it typically is trying to undermine the movement that it's reacting to. So, whether or not the reactionary movement is bad kind of comes down to whether or not the movement that it's trying to undermine is bad.
Okay. So, if you had, like, the men's rights activists, or, them there, and let's say that they are a reactionary movement, which, I mean, I would completely believe that they are a reactionary movement to feminism. Do we think that the current arguments are necessarily, like, bad? Because, I mean, most MRAs talk about the same things, like male suicide rate, death rates in the workplace for men versus women, prison rates for men versus women, and child and like divorce laws, things like that. That tends to be like their big five kind of like points. I mean, I've listened to quite a few feminists. I don't hear them exactly talking about those things. Like, I would not expect a feminist movement to sit there and give a shit about men's rights, because that's not their stated goal.
Counterintuitive to their movement. It doesn't promote anything.
I think it's a time and place sort of thing. Like, I think all of those points are important. I think that the points men rights activists make are important. But I think when you utilize these things in a reaction to women's rights, that's when it becomes a problem. Oh, we need, women need XY rights. And then someone that's an MRA comes back with, well, what about men? That's when it's bad. That's when it's a problem.
Well, I don't know. I guess my problem with that is I look at what rights do women have, or what rights do women not really have, I suppose. They have reproductive rights. They have, we can't, you can't, not legally supposed to be fucking raped. We throw people in prison for a long fucking time for that. Voting is all sorts of things there. Like, I look at modern feminism and I just kind of like look at it and I cringe because it's like, you won. Like, fuck, man.
I mean, as far as abortion is concerned, that one is still being talked about regularly, and people are still changing and fighting about that. So that's
we're
still
seeing
one that's on the
firsthand in a couple of topics too is the disadvantages of women, or that if women thought that they were losing and everything, and that they still wanted to take more, that they had won already. We're seeing that firsthand because when we see that, what's kind of unfair, actually. Now, maybe this doesn't make for a good point argument, but because what I was initially thinking was the cross-gendering in sports and athleticism. So we have men going into women's sports, or we're saying, oh, that's fine.
That's a totally different issue.
I know it is, but the fact that we're seeing the grotesque difference in men and women, in that when a man competes in a woman's sport, it ain't like it's the same. Like, a man is not, women can beat men.
That's not women or men's rights.
I know that, but I'm just speaking merely on a gender perspective to say that you cannot say that we are both the same and that you get, the advantages, everything that women have been handed right now.
Sure,
like you said,
modern feminism
in a lot of different directions.
Yeah. Well, I would say modern feminism doesn't even push that. Like that's never been something
it
that's
doesn't.
really pushed forward.
To say that there's a massive difference in men and women is just nuts to me, because it's we've almost got it. It's like damn near like you've got everything that you could ever need. So what more could you possibly? What could there possibly be that you think you're at a disadvantage on in this world? And there's just not much there.
Well, and I don't even necessarily look at the abortion question as like simply a female issue.
Though it's treated as such.
Yeah, and I think it is treated as such, and I don't believe that is necessarily correct. You do get a lot of people like the "my body, my choice" kind of argument.
I think
that comes
that's
forward.
the kind of
like,
bullshit. In some way, there's this.
Yeah, I think that is a rhetoric game. But I mean, like in those societies. So I mean, I guess what we could put forward here is, you know what, we're gonna leave that for another video. We're not even.
We'll do a Smishmortion video. Oh, this would be good actually. Pro-life.
It is a wholly different subject that leads us down such a rabbit trail that it doesn't really matter.
We'll dive into. I had learned this year about that I knew nothing about, and I got really upset. There was a lot I did not know about.
3 white males discussing abortion. This will be a video no one wants to watch.
Dude, Dana looked at me when I told her
this will be the video people want to watch. Yeah, well, and again, I reject a lot of those things where it's like, listen, I can have a discussion about. I mean, I'm a free speech absolutist, so
sure,
it's like I can say whatever the fuck I want.
Right.
that'll
yeah.
All right, let's see what else Hasan has to say.
Well, yeah, literally devaluing your own movement. It doesn't really matter outside of that anyway. It doesn't matter. Dumbasses are fucking devaluing the men that experience a fuckload of problems in today's society. But wow, incel politics are literally identity politics. Hilarious irony. Yes, incels are also looking for structural change. A lot of men on the internet and a lot of boys on the internet do not have proper guidance, and they also look to structural analysis to feel comfort that it's not actually
on the internet.
I mean, this is such the conservative argument from Hasan right here. If you were to change out like incels or MRAs and his arguments essentially against them, or why they exist and why all of the negative things that they feel have happened to them.
What do you mean I can't find an internet daddy that doesn't work well for me? What the fuck?
Yeah, I don't know.
He's got a very pick yourself up by your bootstraps sort of argument
Dude,
going.
and that's
Yeah,
just
I
not
mean,
how all things work.
yeah, okay,
But
Hassan.
that's the
apply this-
conservative argument, like Nigel said.
I guess.
I know. And that's that's the funny thing. It's like Hassan's like a fucking super liberal like socialist. And if I were to sit here and like transcribe the arguments that he said and then replace like male or incel with like black, he'd be like, that's absolutely fucking ridiculous. Like he'd have a fucking connection for that. By the way, I am against toxic masculinity. I'm drinking out of what I would consider to be a very effeminate cup with my iced caramel macchiato coffee, and it's goddamn delicious.
Fucking pussy. Kidding.
Can I just be really reductive for a second and say
100%.
I just can't begin to understand why incels are like a community of people we even acknowledge as a community.
I didn't even know they existed until the other day.
Well,
in fact, I said it to Dana, and Dana goes, "Who?"
Yeah. Uh-huh. Incels are like the strange. I mean, I agree. You know, I agree with you. But like how they essentially came, I would say how a lot of incels came to be would have actually been a lot of the attacks on what would be considered generally masculine in a lot of ways, and it's kind of like left a lot of men in society where they just don't know where they stand necessarily. And when you just get a bunch of people together, you know, like they're gonna form some kind of group. It's just, I mean, but yeah, I would say they're in my personal
women hate
opinion,
me. You want to form a group? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like
let's keep
yeah.
this group. Yeah. Fuck.
I also
I have about as much respect for incels as I do like bronies.
I would
like,
also
okay.
like to point out exactly how cyclical it feels to be like, I don't have what it takes to get a female, so let's form a group with all of these other people that don't have what it takes to gain a relationship. And it's like, I don't.
It's the lame version of the He-Man Women Haters Club.
Yeah,
Oh my
well,
God.
and that's where he said, you know, like you guys just want to get together and you want to hear these things just because you feel bad, and it feels good because you feel bad.
You guys want to make some real change about our personal lives? No, I want to bitch and complain.
Now he put that on Jordan Peterson, which I'm just like, son, you've clearly never listened to like Jordan Peterson or read his fucking book, because like he's the opposite of that. He outright has stated, because people have asked him about the incel question, he's outright gone, okay, so I have a statement like this. It's that if all of the women are rejecting you, it's not the women. You know, it's not the women's fault. It's you. You need to fix yourself. You need to get out there. You need to take care of the problems that you have in your life, and those things will come. You know, that's his whole rhetoric, is that it's like, no, if you make yourself as positively capable as possible, things will just come to you. Like it will happen. You will then start riding the Pareto distribution of success, you know? And it's going to take a long time, and it's absolute. And he says, like, it's going to suck. He's like, listen, self-reflection on why you're a piece of shit is fucking terrible. He's like, I had no idea why kids showed up to my class, because I looked at them and I went, hey, here's what I'm going to teach you, is that the Nazis were people just like you. They were human beings just like you, which means you would have probably been a fucking Nazi. In fact, you'd have probably reveled in the fact that you were a Nazi and that you were a guard at Auschwitz killing the Jews. You're inherently a piece of shit, and you need to be fucking aware of that so that you can fix it and not allow society to go down that fucking track again. That was his fucking class. And he posted all online.
Speaking of that, I think it's, without getting on too long of a tangent, I do think it is funny the amount of people that are like, if I lived in Germany, I'd revolt. And it's like, and you'd be dead. So, like...
Yeah. Like,
well, and it's even worse. More likely, you wouldn't. More likely, you'd go along with the fucking crowd, and you'd be there shooting pregnant women in the back of the head and kicking them into a ditch.
But everyone acts like they wouldn't have been, is my point. That's why I think it's funny. Everyone you talk to that believes themselves a good person is like, I would have never done that. And I believe myself to be a pretty decent person. And, like, I mean, not only my life, but my family's life would be on. Because the thing about, like, Nazis is like, they wouldn't only kill you. Oh, you won't do this with us? Well, we'll kill you and your family. Fuck.
Yeah. All of them are verboten. Yeah, all of them are the Untermensch. Yeah, like I
The
mean,
problem too with the argument is that when you hear, and this is where people end up taking that bit of information, like, oh well, if you were a Nazi back then, you would have. Trust me, it wouldn't have been a simple decision to just to say no. When they hear you say no, yeah, that's what really would have happened. They'd be like, well, then that makes you inherently a Nazi and a white supremacist because you all of a sudden think that most people would be Nazis. No, that's just the fact of the matter that back if you were stuck in that particular position or that particular time, you'd probably go with the fucking flow if you knew that you were going to die. But that's not what's read on the
Yep.
other side of that album, so they label you for it.
Yep.
yeah.
All right,
Right.
but anyway, go on.
Not their personal problems or individual setbacks that they could potentially work through in a healthy manner
Again,
and change their
does
lives
that
for
say-
better.
yeah.
It's actually
Yeah, they should just change their lives
like
for together.
women, having more of a place in the workforce, and third wave feminism and sexual liberation for women, and women having the right to choose their sexual partners, and then therefore leading to whatever the fuck these dumbasses believe, like female hypergamy. You know what I mean? Like all of that is still the very same structural analysis.
Anyone else notice all these cuts?
I mean,
Is it?
Like, do you guys
No, I
notice all
haven't
these
noticed,
cuts
but-
that are in the video? I don't know
Is
if
this a
like these-
heavily edited video?
well, like here, I'm gonna take it back like 5 seconds here, and just
Having
watch
the
how many
right
times
to
it
choose
cuts.
their sexual partners, and then therefore leading to whatever the fuck these dumbasses believe, like female hypergamy. You know what I mean? Like all of that is still the very
Right there,
same
right there,
structural analysis.
right there.
Is a similar
five of
kind
them.
of structural analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if his editor is taking out all of the ums and uhs or something,
probably.
because it, like, I just saw that and I was like, what the fuck just happened? I thought I was glitching the fuck out.
That they criticize when it comes to other marginalized communities. The difference is when black people are talking about systemic racism, they're correct. It is well documented. It is calculated. It is codified.
Okay.
But when the dominant class is talking about
Didn't he just say that all of the things that these men's rights activist groups are talking about are valid?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I
didn't he
can't
just say,
remember.
like, yeah, those complaints that you had, those are real things?
Yeah.
structural problems with women having more liberty and
Also, by the way, that whole ramble he had about, like, hypergamy and sexual fucking, being able to choose their sexual partners and all that kind of stuff like that, that's one hell of a straw man he built up. I've never heard an MRA go, well, yeah, you know what, I think women should just be forced to get fucking married at the age of 20 or something. Like, I've never heard any MRA say it. Have you guys ever heard, like, a
No.
men's right guy come in and say anything about, like, women should be forced to marry people at a certain age or something? Or or not be allowed
Not-
to divorce or something?
Right, no.
Jakai,
I
have you
love
ever heard anything like that?
No,
Did we lose Jakai?
no, I'm still here.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know either. That's one hell of a straw man he built up in all of, like, 5 fucking seconds.
choose their sexual partners, it is not a fucking legitimate concern. What guidance if you're short, ugly? No guidance will help. Women find you unattractive? Yeah, guidance will help. LMAO. No, brother, you just want to feel sad. I'm sorry. It's a way to feel better about yourself. That's it. Like,
That is true. I will say that is one of the biggest things about, like, the incel group and a lot of groups online is there are a lot of people who, like, wrap themselves in, like, their horrible neuroses and their victimhood and things like that, and they wear it like this comfortable little blanket because, I mean, I don't really know why. Maybe they feel like it gives them some kind of, like,
Insecurity.
well, I would say it gives the. I would say that a lot of them probably feel like it gives them some pass for some negative behavior or some.
No, I'm saying that's why they
reason.
wear it, is because they're heavily insecure. Now, what does it give them?
I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's
Maybe.
less about what it gives them and more about they don't know how to change it. You know, like when your anxiety is that severe, you just don't know how to get out of it. And so they just hide and blame everybody else because they don't know how to build on themselves.
Like a hermit crab.
Except hermit
Sure,
crabs
yeah.
will get out of their shell and go find a new one if they think it
I
fits better.
know. I know.
Hermit crabs officially evolutionarily superior to people who complain on the internet.
Is that the tag? Nigel, did you just get the tag for this video?
I did. I absolutely did. That's 100% the thumbnail. There's gonna be a hermit crab just like crawling out, and then a bunch of like sad doomer people on the internet behind there, just like, oh, don't leave.
Incel.
God.
You just want to. It's a way to feel better about yourself, so you keep seeking that negative shit because it makes you feel good. And because I love reading negative comments about myself. Okay, it's a coping mechanism that I do it too. I love reading fucking all the worst shit that people say about me.
That's
I love
super
it.
unhealthy, Hasan.
Yeah.
But I fucking love that shit. Wait, someone explain this? How would this affect his job? My guess is he would use facts because truth is all that matters. Men have the highest suicide rate around the world. All the supporting group for men is non-existent. Like, the reason why supporting group for men is non-existent isn't literally fucking women being like, you can't have a support group for yourself. It's because of toxic masculinity. It's because of gender patriarchy hurting other fucking men.
Oh. I mean, maybe not feminist explicitly, but I mean, this whole fucking video has been shitting on men's rights groups.
I was gonna
Well,
say
but
quite the claim to say that.
But I don't totally disagree with him. Like, I think toxic masculinity is a lot of that, and I think it's getting better. Full disclosure, I think it's getting better. But, you know, like men who cry or men who are sad or men who are upset, you have people that tell them to stop being a bitch or stop being a crybaby.
Yeah, but that's not what he said.
That's
like
basically what he said.
No,
he said
what he
toxic
said was,
masculinity is the cause.
Yeah, but he said toxic masculinity isn't because women's groups or other people aren't allowing you to like go to therapy or have groups or have like group sessions or something like that. And I'm just like, well, no, but your entire video here has been shitting on the groups that exist to do that. Like
he said that those don't exist because of toxic masculinity, not because like the suicide rates are high and stuff. Go on, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say let's just back it up 5 seconds and see.
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's just be clear.
Proof for men is non-existent isn't literally fucking women being like, you can't matters. Men have the highest suicide rate around the world. All the supporting group for men is non-existent. Like, the reason why supporting group for men is non-existent isn't literally fucking women being like, you can't have a support group for yourself. It's because of toxic masculinity. It's because of gender patriarchy hurting other fucking men. It's this ridiculous approach to mental health that men have. Women get raped and it's a tragedy. But
I actually agree with that statement.
I mean, there's some truth. I mean, yeah, what he said objectively, yeah, sure. I mean, to an extent. I mean, again, he has also not defined what toxic masculinity is, so I'm not sure really what he's referencing specifically. But yeah, I mean, to an extent, that is true. The kind of old idea of like bottle up your emotions, put it in a pit in your stomach, and suck it the fuck up and move on.
Yeah, but
why are you going to a fucking site? But I've also never in my life heard anyone tell me that. I mean, even in the military, which was, as we've talked about in the past, was like a hyper masculine space. I never got hurt. I mean, people got told all the time, like, yeah, you need to go to, like, I got forced to go to the fucking psycho in the Navy because I didn't think something was wrong, and like everyone else was like, yeah, like you need to go.
Well, and like I said, I think that these things are 100% getting better. But like, you know, like even the generation right before us, like I know for a fact that like Brian did not get a lot of the help that he was supposed to get because people just told him like, you're a man, you're supposed to get through it, you're supposed to deal with it. Like people still say that about him. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? It happens. I think that it is getting better though. I agree with his point, but I'm glad to see that I do think, at least in my personal experience, those things are getting better.
Yeah, but would not what he was just saying previously, like, completely discount what I look at what he had said almost immediately before that, where it's like, all these things are valid, but it doesn't fucking matter, as like, okay, well then how are you going to come back like 5 seconds later and say that I am, like, all of the problems that I have are valid, but groups that I would essentially go to are stupid and ridiculous and reactionary in and of itself, and then try and come back to me like I mean, this seems like he's going in like this weird loop of like, again, well, you know, you shouldn't be
the thing
toxic.
Is
Toxic masculinity is bad, but anybody bringing up the issues with men, go fuck yourself. You're being a fucking bitch about it.
It's not that. It's like, I think that his argument is almost exclusively as a reaction. Like, these things are valid and people need help, but stop using someone else's movement. Stop trying to hijack them and react to their needs to show light on your needs. Utilize your own resources. Like, stop putting other people's needs down to build yours up, is his argument.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, so let's pull this up here real quick. MRA, just look up the MRA wiki. Oh shit. There we go. There's a lot of medical terms that go with MRA.
Yeah, I found that out the hard way too.
Focus on social issues, specific government services would adversely impact or in some cases structurally discriminate against men and boys. Common topics over the men's rights movement include family law, such as child custody, alimony, and marital property distribution, reproduction, suicides, domestic violence against men, circumcision, education, conscription, social safety nets, and health policies. The men's rights movement branched off from the men's liberation movement in the early 1970s, with both groups comprising the part of the larger men's movement. I mean, let's see if I can find exactly. So, I mean, that actually pretty much describes right there. It's like, what is this about? Groups and individuals who focus on general social issues and specific government services which adversely impact or in some case structurally discriminate against men and boys. I mean, like, I don't know. Is that it? I feel like that's exactly what you're talking about, though. Is like they are not necessarily trying to hijack the feminist movement. It seems like they're just going forward and talking about male movement. I mean,
but they are like even in the same article that you're looking at right now, the next paragraph. Many scholars describe the movement or parts of it as backlash against feminism. As part of the manosphere, the movement and sectors of the movement have been described by scholars and commentators as misogynistic, hateful, and in some cases as advocating violence against women. Hasan is not trying to invalidate any of the arguments.
I would completely. I think he absolutely is.
I don't feel that way at all.
I think that he absolutely is. So I understand, but that's many scholars. Like I could sit there and state that I think feminism is just simply there to try and destroy men in society. That doesn't necessarily mean it's true. I mean, I would take feminism and go, okay, the same way that I just did with the MRA thing right here, where it's like, okay, third wave feminism, what is their stated goals? Okay, we'll go on that. We'll go on that because if that's their stated goal, sure. Sure, that could be the case. But he's describing them all universally as like this reactionary movement against feminism. And he's saying they're trying to co-opt it. But I mean, like, is that actually the case? Is he going to provide some kind of evidence towards that? Because, I mean, like, what else? I mean, if we sat there and had some different group that had those same stated goals, but us three were to make a group that said, well, here's what we're going to try and go forward as, because we feel like men are being structurally discriminated against in America in particular, and we are going to develop a group together to where we are going to try and combat that. Like, objectively, we have the same stated goals as MRAs. Does that make us reactionary, or is that something that we're not necessarily allowed to do? We're not co-opting anything. And as far as the stated goals of the men's rights movement, that's not their stated goals, is to like sit there and attack women or something along those lines. I mean, maybe you have people that have done that, sure, but I mean, like, it's about timing
and context too. Like, and that even, and I know we're just looking at Wikipedia right now, but even though Wikipedia says some of the things, not all of them, the arguments aren't invalid. It's about when you bring them up and why and how. If you're on Twitter and someone's like, women's rights this, and then someone responds with, well, but what about men's rights that? Like, that's the problem. The problem isn't the things they want. The problem is the way in which they're trying to get them.
Sure, but he's attacking the groups as a whole. I mean, no one's ever going to defend. I'm sure you could sit there and even have people who are like leaders of the MRA movements or something like that and go like, well, do you think that this should be like, they're not going to defend some hot fucking Twitter take or something. Like, that's not going to be the case. You're going to have dumbasses that go on and do various different things outside, because you could sit there and have the same thing. Like, I guarantee you we could sit there and go on like a men's issues Reddit or something like that, or a men's issues group on fucking Twitter, and you're going to have like 100 fucking like feminazis or 100 fucking like hardcore SJW people who every time something is posted, it's like, oh, it's typical fucking male fucking privilege talking about bullshit that doesn't even actually fucking matter. Women in Georgia can't get abortions after the first trimester. You know, something like that. It's like, that's great, but that's not what we're fucking talking about here. Thanks for your fucking opinion. Fuck off. You know? So I mean, like, he seems to me like he's sitting here attacking the group as a whole, and it's like, well, Hasan, maybe you're gonna say in this minute right here that you believe that no one should be stopping them from essentially going forward and finding groups and creating advocacy groups to aid them in what they feel is going on. But the previous 6 minutes, you've been knowing nothing but shitting on the only group really that is doing so. So I mean, like, are they allowed to have it, or are they not allowed to have it, or are they only allowed to have it if it narrowly fits your terminology? And he even previously said that, like, yes, while the complaints you have about the structural oppression against men in society are valid, it doesn't matter. You know, like.
I mean, again, I don't think he exactly said it doesn't matter.
Have to exactly use those type of words to imply the same thing.
He absolutely did, because what he made the statement of was that it's like, these are reactionary movements, and you may be able to bring all these stats and statistics back together, and you may be able to find all of the reasons why you're structurally oppressed. But it's not the same as when, like, a black person says that these things are going on, because those things are actually valid. So he's, by proxy, saying, yes, you have problems in society, but your problems don't matter because there are other. He did exactly what you're stating that you're complaining like the MRA groups do. I mean, maybe we can go back and find that part or something like that. But I mean, like, that's, from what I heard, that's quite literally what he said. He compared MRA groups to, like, black activist groups and went, you may have all the things together, but theirs actually matter because theirs are actually valid, therefore invalidating the other side. So, I mean, maybe I'm a crazy person.
I mean, that's neither here nor there.
That wasn't. I don't know. That just wasn't really my interpretation of it. To me, it was more about, like, the idea of trying to hijack other people's movements is the problem.
But I mean, are we? But I mean, is he bringing forward that that's the case? I mean, I'm not seeing. I mean, he's a fucking multi-millionaire fucking YouTuber, Twitch. He's got an editor that will take out all of the ums and uhs and everything like that in his videos.
Well, and we're picking apart every single thing he says, and we're taking a broad spectrum.
It would be a much longer video if we were trying to find all of the proof that he would bring up and all of that. This is just him reacting to his comments.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, sure. All right, we'll continue.
More than women talks about it. Like, again, it's because as a boy, you're supposed to suck it the fuck up. You're a man. You're not supposed to admit it. That's where this fucking comes
true.
from. Okay.
That's
also,
his
I don't
point.
think the statistics talking about like prison. But then when you counter that with, like, yeah, we should have mental health therapy for men and men should have support groups and blah blah blah, then people turn around and go, oh well, they're pussies. Like, they should be able to deal with it on their own. Like, so you're reinforcing the same fucking systems that literally put you in this position to begin with. It fucks you over. My God.
Again, I hate to stop it again, but in my life, I've literally never heard that ever told to anyone.
What?
That if you need to go get therapy or you have some kind of issue going on, that you should just suck it up and you're a pussy for going to get therapy. I don't know. Like, I've never heard
I had a rough in high school, and I saw a counselor in high school because I was going through a rough time, and it was the greatest thing I had fucking done. Plain and simple. I didn't have a mom that was, like, super confident, so I found somebody else that was fucking cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I know, Jakaya, you said that, like, Brian was, told that and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't know. I've never.
Family that's like that too. So.
Yeah.
And I never made it public. I didn't want the world to know my shit. Like, my business is my business, right? That's always been the thing that's putting you. Hey, get your shit together, right? Is what they say. But doesn't mean that you can't find help.
Yeah, I mean, like I've never heard that in my life.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I'm obviously
that might be a bad teacher
but I mean,
for a father.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I've never heard that in my life.
Yeah,
I've never heard anyone
either.
call someone a pussy for going and seeing a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
No.
No.
And I mean, like, my dad was like a biker and shit like that. So, and I grew up in the same place Jakai did. So I mean,
I feel like
you know,
therapists come with their own taboo. If you go see a therapist, some people might think that you're crazy, but that's completely separate. I feel from well, some people can. There's a taboo to that. I've known a few people that are like, "Oh, I was gonna go see a
oh yeah,
therapist." Like, why is there something wrong? It's like, no. I'm just seeing a fucking therapist. Calm the fuck down. But there are some people that unfortunately connotate therapists. There must be something wrong with them. No. So, but that's not even related to being a man or not. That's just how they. I don't know. Some people that I know anyway that I've interacted with that take therapy, in a very stupid and strange way. Yeah.
All right, let's finish up this video.
Which is not necessarily bad. I'm surprised, but do you think there's a reasonable expectation that this kind of toxic thinking will go away? It seems so ingrained in our society. No, it's not going to go away. And the reason why it's not going to go away is because it's very good deflection. It's a very good distraction from the actual methods of dealing with a problem at hand. And it's like the liberal side of this is campaigns that people engage in where they like want to fucking cancel someone immediately without like applying additional fucking context. Liberals do it in that way where they can't deal with fucking structural racism because it's incredibly difficult to do. They are rightfully angry about unaddressed grievances. So because people in positions of power can't be taken down, they turn around and they attack whatever the fuck they can with righteous anger, maybe in a lot of instances misdirected, but still righteous anger that in some circumstances is literally disproportionate because they recognize that maybe they can have a little bit of a fucking moment of victory, some solace that they are able to change something in society. When these are not real, you're not actually contributing any sort of like meaningful material change. You're just making yourself feel better. Okay.
Again, I don't think he would ever give this kind of take for any other group. Like I don't think he would ever be. This like, oh well, there's nothing you can really do about it, and you shouldn't just fucking exist. And what's the point of even going forward with it? Because your issues aren't actually that big of a fucking deal, or that they exist, but there's nothing you can fucking do about it for any other fucking group. Like, I just don't believe that he would do that.
I hate his dumbass definition of righteous anger. It's like, well, yeah, you're justifying the pleasure for being pissed off. Like, okay, maybe you could say that you're justifiably upset, but it might be misplaced, but that's okay. So what you're saying is that if somebody's life gets raped, and that guy goes on a... They said it was certainly justified.
He said
it might be a little misplaced. And then he lightens the blow, like, oh, if my wife's raped and I go on a mass shooting. I mean, he was justifiably angry. I mean, he just went the wrong way.
Well,
guy put fucking batshit.
What he said was you can't make the big change, so you go down these fucking rabbit holes and you get into such fucking specific issues.
But that's not
that, But what he was saying is you go down these specific issues for some temporary small win. But in the end, like, it's pointless to kind of put those things together. It's just like, okay,
I don't think he said it's pointless. He said it feels pointless.
Yeah, but I guarantee you, Hasan would never say that the premise of Black Lives Matter, another group of individuals who feel that they are structurally imposed upon by the greater society, that their activism is actually pointless.
Those are the ones he's talking about.
Yeah, but what it actually is a class struggle. Like...
you're so focused on that, but he's literally talking about those groups not being able to get what they want, so they attack. He's saying that they're wrong. Like, that was his point there.
All right, let's back it up just a
down. They turn around and they attack whatever the fuck they can with righteous anger, maybe in a lot of instances misdirected, but still righteous anger that in some circumstances is literally disproportionate because they recognize that maybe they can have a little bit of a fucking moment of victory, some solace that they are able to.
So you think that Hasan Piker is saying that the MRA groups and Black Lives Matter have disproportionate reactions to the society?
No.
I mean, maybe you just haven't seen enough.
That's not what I'm talking about at all. What I'm saying is he's talking about movements such as like feminism and Black Lives Matter and whatever attacking the wrong people because they feel like they can't get results from the right people. That's what he's saying.
I don't know. I think if you watch more of Hasan Piker, I think you'd realize a little bit more. But there's no way he would ever say that BLM is. He absolutely fucking would.
That's literally what he's saying. That's what he said, like almost verbatim.
No, he's saying liberals as a whole. But
exactly.
where
He
they
may-
can't
yeah,
deal
but-
with fucking structural racism because it's
So liberals as a
incredibly
whole
difficult to
can't
do.
deal with structural
they are
racism.
rightfully angry about unaddressed grievances. So
Rightfully angry
because
about
people in
unaddressed
positions
grievances.
of power can't be taken down, they turn around and they attack whatever the fuck they can with righteous anger, maybe in a lot of instances misdirected, but still righteous anger that in some circumstances is literally disproportionate because they recognize that maybe they can have a little bit of a fucking moment of victory, some solace that they are able to change something in society. When these are
So I
not
feel like he's
real,
justifying violence.
Hang on.
Not at all.
any sort of like meaningful material change. You're just making yourself feel better. Okay? Shit goes for, you know, the other side of the equation. If it's misdirected and disproportionate, the motivating principle is understandable. That's what I'm saying. When you ever debate people you criticize like Jay?
If he is going to state that Black Lives Matter is the same thing that he just said, that would be such a complete fucking like 180 that it would actually be like a 7 fucking 20.
But that's literally what he said.
Away.
Like, it's
Yeah,
not even a
I don't-
question. He literally said it.
Yeah, he's yeah, I absolutely don't believe that he means that in any way, and he wouldn't state that about any other group other than like the specific ones that he's against. He
But
would
I don't
never
understand.
say
He said
that.
institutional racism. He's literally
He-
talking about
he
liberals
said-
and BLM.
He said he didn't say BLM. He said liberals. All he said was liberals don't know how to deal with structural racism and they can't take down the people in power, so they misdirectedly go after various different fucking organizations that some may say is misdirected, but they have righteous anger to do so. But all this while before, he was shitting on MRA fucking groups. And I fucking bet you fucking $20 that if he was in a debate and someone were to throw this quote back in his face and phrase it for fucking BLM, he would completely fucking disagree with the words that he said.
Maybe, but if liberals, I don't know him enough, but if you're saying that liberals who are angry at structural racism, who other than BLM is that?
I mean, any of the social justice movement. I mean, to be completely honest with you. Like, any of the social justice movements, that would be the case. I mean,
Yes, but does
all of
BLM
them.
not fit in that
Yeah.
umbrella of liberals who are angry at fucking
Sure.
structural
Sure,
racism?
Sure, you could absolutely make that claim. But what I'm saying is that whether or not he says that, he absolutely. You could sit there and go into a fucking chat and be like, so do you believe that BLM has righteous but misdirected anger towards the structural racism and that they aren't actually capable of making any effective change, but that they are only going out and essentially acting like that's too inflammatory, but that they are only going out and that they just have misdirected anger and actions that they won't actually be able to fucking accomplish anything. He'd be like, totally no.
But you also keep speaking in absolutes when he's not. He's saying that sometimes people are misguided and sometimes they're making the wrong decisions and sometimes they can't change things, which is absolutely the case. Listen, I'm pretty in support of a lot of like BLM as a premise, but they've absolutely done some stupid fucking shit that is inflammatory for no reason, and that's his point.
Yeah, and I don't think Hasan believes that in any way, shape, or form.
I mean, that's fine. What he believes isn't the question. That's literally what he said, though.
I completely think he's talking out of his ass right now.
I mean, maybe, but that doesn't matter. I can't infer what he like.
On this.
I can't decide what he
okay.
believes.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
And that's okay. But what I'm saying is, I don't think he would give these kind of good graces to any of it. Like, I really don't think. I
don't know what you mean by good graces. He literally just said they do dumb and fucked up shit even if they have good intentions. That's literally what he said.
I don't think he'd have, okay, maybe not good graces. What I meant to say was like nuance. I don't think he would give this kind of nuance to any of them. And I've heard him in debates make those exact fucking.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard him in debates make those exact fucking claims. No, you don't.
Oh, your puppy.
All right, let's finish this video.
For the record, I saw your dog last night jump at the back of your chair batshit. That was hilarious.
Because Jordan Peterson is a vegetable. I don't know if he still is. And Ben Shapiro would never debate me, and neither was Steven Crowder. I hate all of them. One last thing I'm going to say about this is...
He'd probably be okay against Steven. Ben would fuck him up.
Masculine
and
or
Jordan
like
Peterson
positive
would fuck
quality
him up
that you want to attribute to men and women as well, vice versa, comes from confidence, okay? Inner peace that you have found within yourself because you know what your limitations are, you know what your goals are, you can set goals for yourself, and you can achieve them. You believe in yourself, you have inner peace, okay? It's very difficult to accomplish. It's easier
Stop.
said than done, 100%.
I'm stopping.
No, not you. I was talking to my dog.
Oh.
But I actually do want to state something about that. I don't disagree with him in words, but he's not like, and this is a concession to your guys' point earlier. He's not attributing for societal pressures in the things that he's saying right now. He's acting like your decision to be comfortable in who you are and the choices that you make is yours and yours alone, as if other people around you don't exist. And I think that's really disingenuous.
He's practically giving the fucking pull yourself up by your bootstraps argument.
Right.
As a guy who is like, no, America deserved 9/11 because they are giant pieces of shit, and that America is more racist. I've heard him say that it's more racist now than it ever was. It's just like, you are.
Yeah, I think this whole segment right now is really disingenuous.
Watch a video in the 60s, man. I love old riot police videos in the 60s. Not that I am racist, but when you talk about how fucked up shit could have been and how,
oh my god,
turn off and put on some Benny Hill music and watch somebody take a water cannon to the face.
Dude, well, and those things are great when you have people who make that argument, like America is more racist now than it ever was before. Then it's like, I'll just grab an image from the civil rights movement where they're like, fuck, where you got some dude just getting ripped apart by fucking top dogs, and it's like, you sure? I don't agree,
dude.
Anyway,
but when you have true confidence, for example, as I've mentioned in roleplay, I will revert this back to roleplay like I do with everything else. You can take L's with ease because it doesn't fucking matter. Because you know that you are bigger than that. It doesn't say anything about you. That's how this fucking works. So a lot of the shit that other guys who are weak will project upon other men is what we talk about when we say toxic masculinity, harming men because they are basically locking other men into this weird trap. You are literally locking
these cuts are killing
others into this like weird area where you don't want to self-improve. I can think of something else Hasan couldn't take very well. Yeah, if it pertains to something that I truly believe in with my entire fucking heart and chest, yeah, I'm not gonna take the L, Sweaty, because you think that I was doing it.
Oh, okay. So when it's something that you're passionate about, don't take that L. But when it's something else that someone else is passionate about, you should just fucking suck it up, pussy.
Toxicity or some shit.
That's the end of the video. Yeah, I mean, that to me was Hasan backtracking on so many other things that he said in the past, and essentially just going like, well, I think this group doesn't deserve the kind of good graces that I've given other groups. And I mean, for the most part, whenever it was asked like, well, what should men do for these things, and he pretty much just gave like the pull yourself up by the bootstraps argument, which I personally, as a Jordan P. Peterson fan, don't necessarily disagree with. Like, the argument
you're capable
itself,
of doing it, I agree with it too. Like, if you
but
have it in you, at least to make a shot at it, I think taking the attempt to pull yourself up is absolutely great. But you also need a support there, right? Support systems are absolutely imperative. So,
well, and if you're unwilling or incapable for whatever reason of like bettering yourself as much as you possibly can, then complaining about all of the things that you have wrong in your fucking life doesn't actually do it. It's like,
no, this is where I'm meeting like support structures, if it's family or even going to seek some help or some guidance or what have you. You know, if you're having if you're getting depression, Jesus, it's the number one, crime. If you can't punch through and maybe carry yourself on to the next day, it's just becoming impossible. Well, this is where, those level of supports come. Nothing good comes from bitching, right? We already know that. You can bitch all you want. You ain't going to get nowhere. You can spin your tires in the mud. Enjoy it. It's just going to make a hell of a mess. It's like, no. Get that shit fixed. Get yourself squared away. And when you're good, keep trucking along. It ain't a race. Life is not a race.
I think for me, like, the pick yourself up by your bootstraps thing is like, it's about getting help when you need it. It's not about doing it all on your own. Like, to me, like, I know that a lot of people use it as a way to like put people down and tell you that you have to be able to fucking do it all yourself. But like, to me, if I tell someone to pick them up by their bootstraps or pick yourself up by your bootstraps, what I mean is like, do what you need to do to get help. don't just wallow in your own like self-loathing
Yeah.
or your own misery, because that's not going to get you anywhere. You don't have to do it all on your own, but you have to do it. That's what it means to me.
Right.
You have to go
Right.
to a psychiatrist. You have to get a second job. You have to split everything with your significant other. You have to take the extra work because your significant other needs a break because they're depressed or they're stressed out. Like what it
Also,
means
call
is,
out bullshit when there's bullshit, right?
yeah. What it means
Yeah.
is to build your life in whatever ways you can. It doesn't mean to fucking toss aside any help that you're never gonna get.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, and I mean, you're absolutely correct. You need to accept the help when it's offered to you,
Or seek help
as
when
much
you
as
need it.
possibly can. Well, yeah, well, in the end, it does have to come back to the individual because it's kind of like take addiction, for instance. Like you can have as much support as you could possibly humanly fucking have, but if you as the individual don't take those first steps to go down that road and maintain your own personal vigilance, like it's just not going to work.
Right.
Well, I think
and
there's
that-
something
and that's-
empowering in doing it on your own. So if
Sure,
we-
it may be, but it's very
there
unlikely
is
to work.
the true, and there is a line to have had where it's actively looking for support or leaning and crutching on support and actually making an attempt on yourself and then saying, you know what, even if it's just the smallest of steps, I did this on my own. A little bit at a time, you end up finding out that you can do a lot on your own. And then when you just can't, and inevitably there are going to be times where you can't do everything on your own, you'll know, all right, this is my limit, this is my limitations. Before things get bad or even worse, I need some help. I need to do whatever it is I got to do, to keep moving.
Well, and that's Jordan Peterson's whole point is
Yeah.
start small, start with cleaning your room, and then you're going to get a little dopamine hit from doing that, and then you're going to go into the next thing, and then
Yeah.
you're going to go into the next, and you're going to go into the next thing, but don't ever stop that. Like, don't ever let up on that because you'll end up plateauing and then wallowing and then backsliding way faster than you can possibly.
Right.
But anyway, that seems like a good point to fucking end. Anybody else have anything additional to say? Jakaya, you kind of got cut off a little bit. Anything else?
No, we're good. I pretty much that was it for me with the picture yourself up thing. So
Sweet. Okay.
Good.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this was the Scream Wealth podcast. If you all stayed to the end, you're part of the Watch Till the End Club, and we appreciate you more than everyone else. You have
This was the short video today.
yeah, right.
Where we had,
Um,
I started timing this one
2 hours.
about
We're
an
at-
hour
like
and 46 minutes.
Nah.
okay,
anyway.
because I got an hour and 25. I was like, baby,
All right.
this is
Well,
a good one.
Anyway, bye everybody.
bye everybody. Oh shit.